Hello everyone, so welcome to another Leetcode question, and in this question we will be solving remove element. So what we have in input is that we have an integer array nums and an integer value represented by variable val. We have to remove all occurrences of this variable or the value val in nums in place, okay, and the relative order of the elements may be changed. So basically the output order of the elements does not matter to us. And like in the previous question, this question is quite similar to that because the result will be placed in the first part of the array nums. Okay, so if there are, after removing the values val from the array, we will have, let's say, 5 elements. So these 5 elements will be placed as the first 5 elements of the array. Let's just read through the question. If there are k elements after removing the duplicates, then the first k elements of num should hold the final result, like we discussed earlier. It does not matter what you leave beyond the first k elements. So it doesn't matter what we have after the first k positions. We are not simply caring about those elements. And as output of this function or this program, we have to return this value k and modify that array nums in place. Okay, so again, we should not allocate any extra space. No auxiliary space should be used as part of the solution, and we have to modify the input array in place, which means we have to use constant space in order to solve this problem. Now let's go through the example. So if we have an array nums like that and value 3 is something that we need to delete, then what we'll do, our nums array would look like this. After deleting all the number 3, only 2 will be there in the first k positions, and after that it doesn't matter if you have 3 or whatever in there, it doesn't check for it, and we have to return 2 because there will be 2 elements left after removing 3 val from the array nums. In the second example, we have value is 2, so if we remove 2 from the array nums, so we'll remove 2, we'll have 0 1 and 3 0 4 and 0 1 4 0 3. Also, one more thing that we have to notice here, the order in which we return the result does not matter here. Only the value k and those elements should be placed in the first part of the array. Now let's go through the intuition for this problem. We'll be using two pointer in this question to solve this algorithm. Why? Just like in the previous question, we discussed that first one pointer will be required to run through the entire length of the array, and the second pointer we need is to hold the elements in the first part of the array that are to be kept in the array. That is, the elements that we don't want to delete, we will maintain it through the pointer j, and I will run through the length of the array. Okay, so that's why we can use two pointer to solve this algorithm. Now let's go through the solution, how we'll do this. So we have an array nums with value 0, 1, 2, 2, 3, 0, 4 and 2, and the value that we need to delete, we want to delete from the array is 2. Now let's see how we'll do this. So as we said, we can just check. We know that I will run through the entire length of the array. We know that initially at index I, the value 0 is stored, which is not equal to the value, right? So in this case, I can safely increment both the index because my j should have this value as part of it, right? Because 0 is something we don't want to remove, we want to remove 2. Now we will check at once. 1 is something that's not equal to 2, so we'll keep it in the array. So we'll increment j as well and I as well. Now here, when we look at it, 2 is something that we want to remove. So in that case, we won't increment j because j hold the elements that we want to keep in the array. So we will only increment I. Again, 2 is same as the value that we want to delete, so we'll only increment I. Now at I, we have 3, and 3 is not equal to 2. So we'll put 3 at the position j, and we will increment both I and j. Now 0 is something we want to keep, so we'll put 0 at index j, and we'll increment both I and j. And then 4 is something we want to keep, so we'll put 4 here and then increment both I and j. Now 2 is something we want to remove, so we won't increment j, we'll increment I, and we'll come out of the loop. And j is now at the position, or it actually at the position just after all the elements that have been placed in the array, which is 5, and this is exactly what we want to return. And we said like we don't care about the elements after the position j or the portion of the array where we don't want to know or what we have left behind in this case. So we don't care about this thing. Only j is equal to 5 we have to return, and we have modified this array in place. So this concludes our solution. Okay. Now, as we said, the order of these first 5 elements doesn't matter as long as it doesn't have the element or the value that we want to delete. Now let's go through time complexity. As we see that we are only increment I linearly, and we go through the entire length of the array. So in that case, the time complexity will be linear to the length of the array. And as discussed in the question, we are not creating any auxiliary space. The space complexity will be constant as well. Now let's go through the code walkthrough for this. So what we have with us is an input array nums and a value that we want to delete. As we said, we'll keep 2 pointers I and j. I will run to the entire length of the array. And we said like if the value at index I in nums is not equal to val, then we'll place it at index j and we'll increment the index j by 1. And we will always increment our index I by 1. Okay. So what we have, a very simple example, let's take it. 1, 2, 2 and 3. I is here, j is here, and the value that you want to remove is 2. Okay. So now this value is not equal to 2. So we'll put this value at index j and we increment both I and j. Now this is something that is equal to the value that we want to remove. So we'll increment I, we'll only increment I, same as value, same as value, same as value. We'll again increment I. Now this value is not equal to the val. So we'll put this at the index j. This will become 3 and we will increment I and j both. And j will give us the right index that the output is expecting. In this case, it is 2, right? So 2 elements has been modified and this value is what we want to return, and this nums. And after this position j, including this position, we don't care about what is there in the array. So it doesn't matter. You only have to return the value j and the elements in the first part of the array that has been modified in place. So then we can return safely j from here, and we have modified the array nums. So this concludes our algorithm for the problem, which is remove element. Thank you.